Bible study on grace. Grace is one of the most beautiful expressions of the heart of God, and it reveals His desire to draw humanity back into fellowship with Him. Scripture teaches that grace is the unearned and undeserved favor of God, given freely because of His love, and never because of human effort. The Apostle Paul explains in Ephesians chapter 2 verse 8 that believers are saved by grace through faith, and that this is not of themselves, but it is the gift of God. Grace shows that salvation begins with God, continues with God, and is completed by God, so no one can boast in their own righteousness. The depth of this truth reminds us that grace is not merely a concept, but a living reality that shapes the entire Christian life. Grace also teaches believers how to live. Titus chapter 2 verse 11 says that the grace of God has appeared, offering salvation to all people and training us to deny ungodliness and worldly desires while living self-controlled, upright, and godly lives in this present age. This means that grace does not give permission to sin, but it empowers the believer to walk in holiness. Grace is both the kindness of God toward sinners and the power of God working within the hearts of His people. A Christian who understands grace learns to rest in the finished work of Jesus Christ, while also growing in obedience out of love and gratitude. The greatest demonstration of grace is found at the cross. John chapter 1 verse 14 tells us that the Word became flesh and lived among us, and that He was full of grace and truth. Jesus Christ embodied the grace of God perfectly. Through His sacrificial death and victorious resurrection, He opened the way for humanity to receive forgiveness and reconciliation. Romans chapter 5 verse 8 declares that God demonstrates His own love toward us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Grace reaches people exactly where they are, and lifts them into a restored relationship with God. Because God has extended grace to us, we are called to extend grace to others. Colossians chapter 3 verse 13 encourages believers to bear with one another and forgive as the Lord has forgiven them. Grace shapes Christian relationships by producing patience, mercy, gentleness, and a willingness to forgive. It changes how we respond to conflict and how we speak to one another, since Colossians chapter 4 verse 6 teaches that our speech should always be full of grace. As believers grow in their understanding of God's grace, they become living testimonies of His character to the world around them. Grace is a gift that transforms everything. It brings salvation, produces spiritual growth, heals relationships, and reveals the love of God through Jesus Christ. A life shaped by grace is a life rooted in humility, filled with gratitude, and devoted to honoring God in every way. Understanding grace leads believers to worship, obedience, and a deeper appreciation of the God who freely gives what humanity could never earn.